So far, nobody will debate me. I tried to debate people on patriarchy,
Well,
but...
I will. What about because they're not carrying the baby?
Huh?
What about because they're not carrying the baby?
So they have to stick around because they're, by default, the ones that don't carry the baby? That sounds dumb as fuck.
No, but like to compare them, I guess, is like, you know, comparing them, it's not like apples and oranges because at least those are both still fruit. It's like apples and couches. You know,
So
like
if
it's
I don't want
very different things, I guess.
if I don't want to go on birth control, but we want to stay together, is it fair for me to expect you to have a vasectomy?
I don't think you can make me do anything with my body.
But it's okay for me to make you do something for the rest of your life. It just sounds like a big guilt trip to me.
Like,
whenever women are like, yeah, but we're the ones who are carrying it. It's like, okay, and like you don't have, like you're not, like what? It just doesn't make any sense to me. Like it's not men's fault. It's not like one of the situations where it's like you literally asked me to have this kid. Like that would be a good reason. Saying, well, I'm the one that by default, just by autonomy.
But medical consent is a pretty big issue. Like if you were pressuring me to get a vasectomy, that would be like that'd be an issue in the same way that it would be like, I guess, a man to like pressure a woman to get an abortion or whatever. Or
do you think that a man should be able to like?
Just the medical part is different.
Do you think that a man should be able to adopt a bunch of children without his wife's consent?
I mean, like, I guess there's...
Go to an orphanage, round them all up and say, honey?
I think I don't know how adoption works here. I haven't really ever looked into it. I feel like there's probably some process. Like,
right,
they're not just fucking giving you kids.
But just imagine, there's like 8 kids that have been born together and you're like, you just decide you want to have a baby. Your wife has already expressed, like, she's not interested, but, you know, you want a baby. It's your money. It's your choice. You're the one that's going to be paying for it. She's not paying for it. She's a stay-at-home wife.
Then how is she going to go to the adoption center? I need to...
She's not. You are. You're going to go independently.
Then get 8 kids, but I can provide for them all? What's the issue there? Why is that a problem?
Do you think that that's fair to your wife? To make her responsible for kids that she never consented to having.
And it's a weird specific thing, but I imagine when you go to an adoption center, if you're going alone by yourself and you're not letting the other partner know that you're going there, so you're just going alone, probably they'll view you as like a single person because you're not bringing your partner there, so they're gonna like vet you and treat you like a single person. And if you're not like able, by their standards, to take care of those kids on your own, all 8 of them or whatever, then they'll send you home. And if you are able to take care of all those kids by their standards, then they'll be like, okay, here's 8 adopted children for you. And then you get home and maybe your husband's mad, whatever, but you can still take care of those kids. It's not going to be like any sweat on anyone's back. So like, you're not forcing that.
But the thing is it doesn't work like that. If a man like isn't ready but a woman is, she's not treated as like a single individual where it's like, okay, go home, figure it out yourself. By default, men are like guilt tripped into that. Like that's pretty fucked up, don't you think? Like imagine if I'd said to you, okay,
Callum, women are guilt tripped into keeping their kids too. Like,
yeah, 4.8 million of them actually.
Very stigmatized.
Yeah, I have the exact statistics on like baby trapping. I think if I'm remembering it correctly, 5.2 million men in America have reported a woman trying to get pregnant or getting pregnant against his consent, and 4.8 million women reported a man trying to get her pregnant or successfully getting her pregnant without her consent. So doing things like taking off the condoms, manipulating birth control, straight up not wearing a condom. So they're both doing it.
Well,
like good men are, I feel like I was kind of baby trapped with Hosey. Like I was considering adoption for a long time. I didn't know what to do. But her dad was like, gonna keep the baby.
What's the question again?
Oh my god.
No,
Go to bed.
just the phrasing of it.
Which one? My original question?
Yeah, the thing that's on your green screen.
If a woman can walk away from a pregnancy, why can't a man?
Because it doesn't have anything to do with his medical autonomy.
Yeah, but you're not understanding
When a
what.
woman walks away from a pregnancy, it's like abortion. It's like healthcare. When a man walks away from a pregnancy, I agree that like maybe there's some like financial situation to that, and like finances are important if you're not making, you know what I mean. But it's not medical autonomy, so that's why it's different.
When women are like, I mean, I as a woman have definitely heard the term like walking away from a pregnancy. Like that is also used in a term of like having a baby, giving them up, and then walking away from it. So if a woman can walk away from a pregnancy, because you have to remember that women have access to birth control, like 12 different types of it, like a shit ton of different types of birth control. We have access to Plan B. A lot of women are protected, if not in all states and provinces, safe haven law, which means as a woman you have like 3 days you can abandon your baby. You know, like you're not charged with like abandonment or anything like
But
that.
a man wouldn't be charged
Adoption.
with abandonment for leaving either. Like there's child support, but they're
there's
not putting them in jail.
That they absolutely are. It's very easy for men to land in jail for not being able to pay their child support.
No, but if you're paying your child, I'm saying if you just leave, that's not a criminal offense. Like
if you've recognized yourself anywhere through text, like if you've texted with her acknowledging at any point that you are the father, she can take that to court. And a judge can demand, and oftentimes they do, the judge will order a DNA test because the judge says that child has a right to be provided for. So if the mother is pretty sure that you're the dad, a mom can take 3 different dads to court and ask a judge to DNA test. How?
Well, one, it's a fine, basically. Like, you're thinking child support for 18 years. It's like basically a fine, monthly fine.
But if you can't afford that fine, what happens is your license gets revoked. And then men can't work, but they have to still work. So they're still getting in their trucks to go to work every day. And then they get pulled over. Their car gets pulled away.
The point that I'm trying to make is you're saying safe haven law, and a woman has 3 days to, like, leave their baby at the fucking fire department.
Yes.
That is wildly different from a man walking away and leaving the baby with the mom. Or a mom walking away and leaving the baby with the dad. It's so different, they're not even comparable. It's like, and then after that 3 days, a woman puts a baby in, like, I don't know, the fucking dumpster or something. That is so different from either parent just deciding to leave and pay child support. And even if you miss a payment, you're not getting charged with the same egregious abandonment, neglect if you just leave the baby fucking outside or something after that 3 day period.
But why would they have to leave it outside? They're protected by safe haven law. They leave it in hospitals.
These things are different.
Do you think that pregnancy and parenthood isn't wildly different? Because I don't think that using pregnancy as a way to guilt trip somebody into parenthood is like the same thing. Because a lot of women will be like, oh, but we could die. But 9 times out of 10, that's actually not happening. Women are having safer, more successful pregnancies and births now ever in history.
But women do die during childbirth.
For sure. But it's not like 2 out of 3 moms are dying from giving birth. This is not something it's uncommon for a woman to die during giving birth unless she has a predispositioned medical disorder, which most doctors will test for and check for before she has to carry through a pregnancy.
But the mortality rate for regular abortion is still higher than financial abortion. So the point that you're making that like, oh, it's not that dangerous to abort, it's a lot less dangerous or a lot more dangerous than it is to financially abort than it is to go through with a pregnancy.
Do you think women are incapable of providing for themselves?
It's a lot more dangerous to go through a pregnancy as a woman or as a person with a uterus than it is to go through parenting as just a parent. Like, one is clearly more dangerous and actually results in, like, death.
So did you know that the number one reason why men commit suicide is because of failure to provide financially for their family? So if...
That's just nearsighted, isn't it? counterproductive.
Nearsighted? Yeah, sure.
Counterproductive.
You could look at like men's mental health that way. Sure.
No,
But at the end of the day, forcing a lot of men are actually forced into providing for children. The mother will decide she wants a second baby and doesn't really care what the dad has to say. And he's forced into a situation where he's not making a lot of money, he's stressed out, he doesn't get to see his kids, he's depressed, and he dies. Suicide is a complete epidemic, and it's the number one reason why men are killing
the
themselves.
number one predictor for suicide across all groups is poverty. So
Right.
if you're a parent and you're impoverished, you're more likely to kill yourself. And if you're a single person with no kids and you're impoverished, you're more likely
So
to
if
kill
the
yourself.
number one reason why
Poverty is leading people to kill themselves, not like having kids.
So then how come moms who are in poverty aren't killing themselves?
I'm pretty sure they are. Poverty among all groups is the highest predictor for suicide.
So how come moms who are in poverty are not killing themselves anywhere near the rate that men are?
They probably aren't nearly at the rate that men are, because men are killing themselves more. Why that is, I don't know. But to say it's because men are taking care of their kids and then they're just killing themselves, like women in poverty are killing themselves at higher rates than women who aren't in poverty as well. Like poverty is a predictor for suicide.
Okay, so let me ask you this then. If the number one reason, you're pro-choice obviously, right?
Well, yeah.
If the number one reason why women choose to get abortions is because they can't financially support the child on their own, and you support that, then why don't you support a man who also cannot afford a baby, doesn't want to be a part of that pregnancy? Don't you feel like if it's my body, my choice, it should ultimately be my responsibility, and I shouldn't bring a baby into this world depending on someone else to take care of it, especially if I'm going to place such high importance on myself as the mother and the one that grows it?
Personally, like, I don't have much of an opinion on that specifically, but just on like your prompt question about like why they're different or whatever, for a man to walk away from like being a parent versus a woman to get like access to healthcare or rights to healthcare or whatever.
But it's not
why
just
they're-
healthcare.
That's why they're different.
I can get pregnant and I can also give my baby up to a family member.
Like-
I can also take a Plan B pill, which is accessible in every single state, by the way. So, and province.
Well, yeah, but
So I also have access to multiple different forms of birth control. So
are
there's
you saying that abortion shouldn't be accessible? I don't understand.
it should absolutely be accessible, but my question is how come there's all these different ways for mothers to get out of unwanted pregnancies that they're equally responsible for, but there's absolutely none for men?
Because culturally, forever the onus has always been on the woman. Like if and even in phrasing like
Like the onus to raise the children.
or like the person who's like at fault for being pregnant even. Like getting
So you think it's like an FU to like patriarchy to make men responsible for it?
No, I think the reason there's so much birth control accessible for women is because like it was a cultural norm for women to be responsible for that. So the products that were available on the market were like female responsibility products basically. Like, and they've looked into
For sure.
male birth control and stuff, and I think that like
It's always just like right around the corner.
well, and the conclusions is always like there's like bad side effects that men don't want to deal with, and the side effects are always really similar to female birth control.
That's actually a fallacy. I have a study, actually, I'm pretty sure right here in my favorites, that show that the same amount of men who would not take birth control is the same number of women who are currently not on birth control. So it's actually the same. The same amount of men who would not take birth control is the same percentage of women who are currently not on it.
No, but what I'm saying is like in these clinical studies for the first human trials on male birth control or whatever.
But men and women feel the same about birth controls. Studies have shown that.
Sure, fair enough. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about in these clinical studies that they did on birth control, the people who were like trying to make and sell this product looked at all the side effects that were very similar to the side effects of like not Depo-Provera, the pill one, it was very similar to all the side effects of the pill, the birth control pill, and whatever private company was going to make this male birth control looked at that study and they were like, oh shit, those side effects are way too bad, like we can't sell this. You know, and
Do you
it's
think
a,
that
it's
that
a
could
private
have-
company, the decision falls on them at the end of the day. You can't like blame like
Do you
men or women or what, like it's a private company's decision to do that, and maybe
Right.
another private company will come around and change their minds, but to me that kind of speaks volumes about like, you know, as an industry, perhaps the big pharma or whatever, however you want to call it, is more willing to like put these side effects to women than they are to men, which is
or
weird.
or
Yeah,
and this is a hot take,
I'm ready.
or
Yes.
what has actually happened is when birth control was starting to be created and made available and they were doing these studies looking at the different side effects, or what happened was because men are typically the ones who are out working long hours providing for the home, these studies showed that, yeah, like probably you're going to give the one who can stay at home, can stay comfortable, can do more self-care, like you're probably going to give them the side effects. If we're looking at like why it was placed on women with all the side effects at the time that it was created, well, you can't give men something that like makes them sick and moody and shitty all day and then go expect them to get up at 5 a.m. and come home at 6 p.m., still play with their kids, still spend time with their wives, and not want to kill themselves at
But
the
you
end of the
can
day.
now.
Well, absolutely. And absolutely, right now, I feel like there's no excuse. And personally, I feel like, actually, I know that if it was the other way around and men had 15 different types of birth control, I have to look up how many different forms of birth control there are for women. But if men had access to multiple different forms of birth control and women had none, I bet you $1,000 that that would be considered oppressive. And it makes more sense for men to have 15 different types of birth control because I can only get pregnant once a fucking year. A man can impregnate however many women his sperms can make in a day, whichever one wins. So obviously it makes more sense for men to have all these different forms of birth control, and if they did and it was the other way around, women would be the one having the issue about the lack of rights over their own autonomy. As a woman, personally, I know that the number one most important thing to me is being able to have that control over my autonomy, having different birth controls made for me, having the ability to make sure that I don't have to base my future on somebody else just because I want to do a very human thing called having sex. And we conceived little baby on birth control. So, birth control isn't always effective. So I just don't see how it's at this point it is oppressive to men.
Well, it would be like, I guess I would just go back to like the private company that thought they had the product and then they ran these tests and it like didn't work out for them. I don't know the exact reasons. From what I understood, it was because like there was these side effects that were really similar to female birth control, and this company got like fucking roasted for like doing that because they're like, okay, so this is like a bunch of like men probably in a boardroom looking at this study and being like, ooh, cramps, abdominal cramps, I can't do that, I wouldn't take that, so I don't think we're gonna put this one to market, boys. That seems a little rough.
No, you're actually wrong. I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but this completely changes it actually.
Well, let me finish before you do it.
Okay.
Fuck, go ahead.
The pill and the women's liberation movement was a huge part of women's freedom, a huge part. Since women disproportionately bore the burden of pregnancy and childbearing, scientists and physicians felt and believed that women should have contraception that they alone control to achieve their goal. They enlisted by scientists and physicians. They started creating it, and they created it for women as
Yes.
a part during women's liberation, during that whole women's liberation movement. It says it right here. It
Right,
cites
but
it.
all those like, I guess all that stuff that you said about women during the early women's movement,
Mm-hmm.
like being able to have bodily autonomy and like medical rights and being able to like decide what medicine to administer, like all these revolutionary ideas about being able to control your own body, men were already able to do that. So like the idea that
How do you figure?
men could take whatever medicine they wanted when women were fighting to be able to take whatever medicine they wanted, or be able to vote, or be able to like work, or be able
Lower-
to go to school.
Lower class men actually couldn't vote around the same time as women. It was only upper class men, and
Where?
they got.
Because in Canada, since conception,
Okay, well, yeah, well, we're
every
talking about
person had a
different
right to
histories
vote.
here.
every single except indigenous people.
I'm talking about in the U.S.
And then they got the right to vote very shortly after.
In the I always make this point because I say
So the whole past century, which Canada was only like 40 years before this past century, like everyone has had the right to vote, women and men, and then indigenous people
Yeah.
for the past century.
somebody here
Which is
says men
crazy
are
that
walking
they were the
away
last
from
to get the right to
pregnancies at
vote.
much
That's
higher
fucked up.
rates, but like how many women are getting abortions? So, like how many women walk into abortion clinics every single day? Like that's my question.
Just walking
Women
back,
walk away from pregnancies every single day too. Adoption, abortions. Like
just walking it back to my point about that.
why shouldn't they be able to?
That private company, I guess like any company with the incentive or the motivation to create male birth control can do it if it passes the regulatory standards. For whatever reason, that they've tried it a couple times and it did not, just didn't work out. Maybe we're both wrong and like the science just isn't there. You know what I mean? Like if male birth control is not accessible right now, maybe it's just because the science isn't there. Maybe it's not like this like conspiracy to oppress men. Or
I never said it was a conspiracy to oppress men. This chick, men walk away every day, and women give up their children for adoption every day. Women kill their children every day at a much
Wait,
higher
what?
rate than men.
What is wrong
So-
with adoption or abortion?
Nothing.
Or
Nothing is wrong with it. But it's the concept of is that she's like saying it is like, well, we should be having this conversation because men already do walk away. Yeah, well, not without having some like snooty person like you give that type of attitude or being called like a deadbeat. You know,
No,
like
but that is
they
a-
don't walk away inconsequentially. Women
I think
do
that is a
in
fair
many
point.
different forms.
That is a fair point. That like there's places in the world. Thankfully, we're not in one of them immediately. That they are some people, depending on their political orientation, I'm not gonna say, are trying to like limit access to healthcare in the form of abortion, right? There's not really anybody trying to like make it like illegal, like you're gonna go to fucking jail for murder if you leave your
I think I
family.
just need to show
Nobody's
you some
saying
studies
that.
of like child support and like really how easy it is to end up in jail.
Yo,
Because men go to jail every single day for it.
Going to jail for murder?
Women are not going to jail for abandoning their babies. The women who put them in dumpsters because they're like mentally ill and have other stuff going on and don't understand that there would be no consequence if they left the baby at the hospital or at a fire station. These women don't know that. They're vulnerable.
After the
They're not going
overturning
to
of
jail
Roe v.
for
Wade,
murder.
there are states, red states, that abortion is so illegal, it is not allowed,
Mm-hmm.
and if you do it, it is equitable to murder.
And that's really fucked up, and I don't think that that should be the case.
No, it shouldn't be.
I don't think that anybody should be punished, persecuted, judged, man or woman, for deciding that they don't want to have a child. I don't think that children are consequences of sex. I think that babies happen.
But I guess
And
like,
most women who are walking into abortion clinics aren't walking in there using it as birth control. It's like a bear that has to chew off its own leg because its leg is stuck in a trap. You don't want to fucking do it. It's just something that has to happen. So like I'm fully pro-choice. I'm just pro-choice for everybody.
but to speak to that person's point about like men walk away every day, like they do, and the
Uh-huh.
the stakes are lower.
generally.
As a woman who walks away via adoption.
Versus a woman who gets an abortion.
But a woman can get an abortion completely privately. A man walks away from a baby and his baby mama is all over social media blasting his
Go to
name.
a different city. Nobody's gonna know you.
So a man has to completely uproot his life in order to have rights over his own sperm.
Dude, we're talking about that versus going to jail for fucking murder. And I don't know how you're saying those are the same.
I'm
You know
not.
what I mean?
I think maybe we just got confused somewhere in this point.
Fair enough.
Okay, guys. I'm gonna let this live and oh, you guys are awesome. 20,000 fucking likes. What the fuck?